This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Friday, September 2nd, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From the New York Times, United Nations says China may have committed crimes against humanity in Xinjiang. The United Nations has released a long-delayed report in which it says actions taken by the Chinese government against Uyghur and other mostly Muslim minority groups in its western Xinjiang province may constitute crimes against humanity. This report was remarkable in part because it was published at all, despite a great deal of pressure from Chinese officials to keep it under wraps, and in part because it was published literal minutes before the UN Commissioner for Human Rights stepped down from her post. Her leaving was already planned, but it was an open question as to whether the report would be published before she left office. The report is 48 pages long, documents quite a few specific instances of widespread abuse, and represents a rare official rebuke of the Chinese government by the United Nations. The Chinese government has responded by saying that the report is propaganda based on falsehoods made up by the US and its allies to make China look bad, basically. From Reuters, new front opens in Ethiopia's resurging Tigray war. A ceasefire between Ethiopia's government and a collection of groups spearheaded by the Tigray People's Liberation Front ended about a week ago, following fighting in a region near neighboring Sudan, and fresh airstrikes on the capital of the northern Tigray region seem to have eliminated any possibility of returning to that ceasefire stance in the near future. This conflict has been ongoing for about 2 years now, and is primarily between the Ethiopian government and a breakaway province led by former Ethiopian leaders. The ceasefire was welcomed by locals and the international community as it allowed foreign aid groups to bring food and medical supplies into an area that has suffered greatly from wartime atrocities, drought, and famine. But these groups have been unable to enter the region for nearly 2 weeks now, and it's unclear if safe passage will be available for them again anytime soon. And from Anchorage Daily News, Democrat Mary Peltola wins special U.S. House election, will be first Alaska native elected to Congress. In what's being seen as a fairly stunning upset, a Democrat has won a special House race in Alaska, defeating, among other rivals, well-known former vice presidential candidate and former Alaskan governor Sarah Palin. This is being seen as a notable outcome because a Democrat has not won this seat since the 1970s, because Peltola will be the first Alaska native ever to sit in Congress, and the first woman to hold Alaska's single House seat, because she defeated 2 Republicans to take the seat in a state that almost always heavily favors Republican candidates, and because pollsters are looking for any indication of how other elections might turn out around the country in November. And this is a data point that suggests Democrats' previously dismal-seeming fortunes might be improving in some areas. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.